So I'm Brian Ittman, Sean's son, and yeah, I'm gonna kind of handle the first part of this, and then I'm gonna hand it off to him because he handled a lot of kind of the legal fluff, if you will. But also forgive me, was at a firefighter training all day, so I'm pretty topped out. So this is just kind of how the schedule worked out. But so here we go. Alaska Caribou Hunt with the Nittmans. Um, Genesis of the trip. So who is this gentleman, Dad?
Well, if it's not apparent, that's not me.
Could be.
Could be. That is Pro Football Hall of Famer Larry Zonka, who was a running back for the Miami Dolphins back in the day, and was on the only undefeated team, I think, in NFL history that went on and won a Super Bowl. And as I recall, one of the few, if not the only running back who was ever called for unnecessary roughness while running with the football. He was the real deal. Anyway, it turns out that Larry developed a relationship with Alaska. And I'll let you. Hey, okay. Speak to the devil. Thanks.
So that's a little backstory on Larry Zonka. The actual genesis of the trip, at least from my recollection, I was very young at this stage, but he was on TV on a hunting show, and he was hunting caribou, ptarmigan, and fishing for salmon all on the same trip. Many years later, it came up where if we had to do a bucket list hunt together, how would you want to tailor it? And that set of caribou, ptarmigan, salmon in Alaska came up. Just so happened I lived in Alaska for a little while after college, and there's a quote out there: "Never go to Alaska as a young man because it will ruin everywhere else for you." And it kind of did. It's absolutely incredible, truly the last frontier, and I was itching to get back. The way my situation worked out is after I lived there, had big time aspirations of making that full time home. Met my now wife the summer I came home from doing seasonal work up there and decided to give that a legitimate shot, and so it didn't go back. Kept it on the back burner. Did a decade of work for the Forest Service, had a couple kids, and it's crazy how kids change your perspective on how you spend your time. Decided to make a life change and come over to Flagstaff Fire Department. We had a couple of deaths back to back in the family, and all of this was stacking up to let's go get this done. So that's kind of trip genesis in a nutshell. A couple things not to leave out. I was unsure about how to undertake something like this. I got a lot of friends who hunt and fish. I still have buddies that live in Alaska, some of which are smoke jumpers, still own and operate businesses up there. And so I had folks to lean on, but the undertaking of hunting out of state, especially going to put together a trip like this by myself, was daunting. So we did a couple warm-up trips. The first one was to Colorado, 2024, and then I went to Mexico as well. And all of that solidified the fact that it's doable. And it's not out of reach, and you can absolutely put something like this together with a little bit of diligence, reaching out to the right people. And then the big thing for me was just committing to it. I'm putting it on the calendar and say, hey, we're going, and getting on someone's books. And it was like, all right, we kind of have to make this happen now. So that's planning cycle for this started pretty much 2 years before we went, a year and a half-ish.
Before you advance, just one interjection. Did you say warm-up trips, Mexico and Colorado?
Yeah.
And if you had to say how Colorado compared to Alaska, temperature-wise?
Yeah, Colorado was blisteringly cold. We went up there in the fourth season right from deer hunt, which in November, and yeah, it was wind chills well into the negatives. Extremely cold, but we had just purchased some gear that I wanted to go up and try our hand in Alaska with, and this will be a good test, and it was, and it held up great. And so we'll touch on some of that later. But yeah, the Colorado trip was it was extremely cold, Arctic conditions, and it all worked out well. But yeah, that's kind of how this thing came to be. Oh, all right. So if you guys have a mind that works like mine, your planning documents look like this. So I've got probably 5 or 6 pages. What is that? So after we put this on the calendar and said, hey, this is the date we're going, got basically all the approvals from the wives, and we got on their books, we fronted some money for this, and it was, well, okay, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Decided we were going fall 25. I was unsure about the experience that we wanted to have up there, because there's so many ways to tailor this thing. With my connections up there and some of my buddies who hunt, everyone had basically done something different. Float trips, hiked in off of the major road arteries up there, the fly-in drop camps. There's a lot of ways to conduct business up there, especially if you're hunting caribou. We decided the fly-in drop camp was probably going to be our way to go. Just most of the corridors that you could hunt that are off major highways up there require, it's like a 5-mile buffer off of the highway corridor that is either archery only or you can't hunt it. So it's physically involved. It comes with a whole another set of logistical planning. Float trips, neither of us had, I thought anyways, the technical skill to want to be able to undertake something like that on our own without a guide. And so the drop camp seemed like our best way to go. Price and then just our inherent skill set seemed like that was going to be our best bet for success. And then I started cold calling a whole bunch of outfitters. It was pick up a Google list. I got a bunch of recommendations from folks as well, and that helped considerably. But it's amazing, you start talking to outfitters, how many of them will throw all the other ones under the bus. So started doing a lot of weeding through stuff. You guys can see on here, there was a whole bunch of things that I wanted to get information on. Length of trip that they allowed, flexibility within that trip, because my brother wasn't sure he could make it the whole time. Could we have non-hunters? Could we stack different species, wolves, do a bunch of fishing, how was the ptarmigan, that kind of stuff. And so finally started to narrow this thing down. That's what all of that is a lot of the information gathering that took place before we landed on going with Ram Aviation and the outfitter we eventually chose. It was a whole bunch of comparing, contrasting different outfits. Let's see, I think I covered basically the whole slide. A couple other things that led into the planning cycle, which if any of you are interested in doing this, you'll have to make some decisions on. But having lived in Alaska for some time, this part right here is the real deal. Going up there at the end of the year when mosquitoes have died off, or going up there early in the year before they're out, is huge. Because during the summer it's miserable. Can be anyways. I wanted a hard horn caribou, so that meant with them not being in velvet, it's gonna be later in the year. So it helped us kind of narrow some things down. And then there's enough time to do it justice. If you're gonna fly in somewhere, aviation in Alaska is very dependent upon the weather. Most of anything along the coast is notorious for fog all the time. Fog, rain, very poor visibility, high winds. And so allotting enough time where I felt like we were going to be able to do or have enough hunting days where we weren't going to get rained out, we were going to get flown in where we wanted to. We had enough cushion to get flown out at a reasonable time and still make commercial flights and stuff like that was big. So working through some of the flexibility with the outfitters on that was good. Anything on research and planning?
I think you got her, buddy.
Basically on these.
Yeah, no, I think that.
Packing. So this was the other big lift. I have a recommendation for anybody interested in doing this. I thought we were going to be saving us some money, and I also was adamant about being comfortable with the gear that we were taking up there, knowing it really well. That's why we opted to take all of our own stuff. That was our own camp, our own food. In hindsight, you choose an outfitter and they offer a package. Might be best bet to go with that. Uh, not that I regret what we did, but when you added up all of the check bags, just schlepping that stuff through an airport, hotels, uh, rental cars, all that stuff, compiling it all at home, and then after the hunt, having to rehab all of that gear. So wash it, dry it, put it back where it goes, all that stuff. It would have been way less of a headache and less of a burden on me to just rent the gear package for not all that much more money. It ended up, it was more expensive to take it up there on our own, with all of the check bag fees and stuff like that. So that's a recommendation if anybody's interested in doing it. To each their own. I was adamant that if we were gonna go do this, I wanted to know the gear, have hands on it and be really comfortable with it being implemented like that. So yeah, to each their own, but if you're looking to save money, it's probably better off to just go with the outfit and what they. Couple readily available things, anybody trying to put something like this together. There's a whole bunch of online resources. You can very easily find Alaska gear lists. I was fortunate enough to have lived up there, one, and two, I had some friends that have gone hunted this type of hunt before, so they were very eager to share some of their knowledge, some of their lessons learned, and that helped put together kind of what we took up. Let's see, the big part of packing. So you have everything you want to take, and you have to make it fit into these really nice airline compliant configurations, and so that was difficult. And it took a considerable amount of effort, a considerable amount of okay, well, this is what we want to put, but we through still doesn't fit. Let's read through it again and really just getting down to the bare essentials.
Briar, can you demonstrate the body position that one has to assume to take their hard waterproof duffel full of stuff and try to weigh it at the same time that you're standing on the scale?
Yes, that is not easy to do. Depends on the duffel, yeah,
It was,
and the scale. Yeah, we did a lot of troubleshooting there and trying to make sure everything was within weight, because you got a weight allowance, and then you have a size allowance too. And so yeah, getting really fancy with that. So like I said, if you want to save time and effort, if the outfitter, if you want to do this, and the outfitter offers a package, probably best to do.
When you said drop-in camp, did you have an idea? Well, you probably knew a little bit about it, but were you going into a place you're going to set up your tents, or was there a cabin there or something? Or?
Nope, it was where we got dropped in to set up a tent. There are some outfits out there that have either old like Forest Service cabins or BLM cabins that they utilize, or they will take you into a set of cabins, more permanent structures. But this particular setup where we were getting flown into set up a tent.
And was it a game management, like here, you would pick a game management unit for your tag, or was it maybe the outfitter helped you pick that out?
A little bit of both. So I wanted to do basically a bearing ground caribou hunt, because you can hunt woodland caribou, bearing ground caribou, and looking at what was available to us, we were behind the planning cycle a little bit. So most of the outfitters that we talked to were booked out 2 to 3 years in advance. Something to keep in mind. This particular outfitter had 2 or 3 slots left, and there was one other that I spoke with that also had availability. One was out of Prudhoe Bay, so very far north, about as far north as you can go in Alaska, and the other out of Kotzebue. And that was one of the determining factors, was these folks offer drop-in camps. These are the type of caribou during this time of year that we wanted to hunt, and that helped narrow some things. But yeah, this was all getting dropped into an area where we could set up our own shelters.
Thanks.
I was going to check.
He's on.
Moving on?
Yeah,
Can we talk to him?
he should be able to hear you if you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Brady. Is there anything that you'd like to say about any of the stuff that your brother just mentioned?
Well, I guess for starters for the group, Brady Nittman, Briar's younger brother, and Sean's other son. I was fortunate enough in this trip to not have to have done any of the planning or the prep work that Briar did. I just had to get myself up there. But I can tell you objectively, looking at the amount of thought and gear that we schlepped up to Alaska, it was a lot. Um, and so I just echo what Briar was saying about if you're gonna take the time to go out and do it the way we did, I would definitely explore using an outfitter's gear. One, just because of the amount of logistics it took to get everything up there, out there, unpacked, repacked. But also, yeah, I mean, it's a tough trip on your gear as well. It's a pretty unforgiving environment. We were fortunate with weather while we were there, but I can't imagine some of the abuse our gear would have taken if the weather had been really poor.
Does that conclude
Also,
your
if you're going to
remarks?
eat oh, I was going to say, if you're going to eat dehydrated food for a week, pack fiber bars.
Thank you, sir. So I'm going to jump into the travel aspect here. And so as you know, first of all, thank Briar that you saw all the heavy lifting going on in advance. I'm just, you know what, you need me to write a check. Let me know how I can help, right? Oh yeah, a little bit of gear. I'll weigh in on that a little bit, but I didn't have to do a whole lot until we started getting more down the road. So you can picture the trip here. John Penn and one of my buddies from Search and Rescue put together this slide of how our trip would look from space. And you can see Flagstaff, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and we're flying this way, flying this way. What we did leave out here is that we did stop in Seattle. And there's a plane change, and all the gear that you'll see here in a minute was changing planes as we went through. Seattle thence to Anchorage. And we spent the night in Anchorage, and then in the following day, in the morning, they have flights from Anchorage. There's one in the morning and one in the later in the day that goes up here to Caribou. You guys might know the Bering Sea, and Nome is on this peninsula, so across this bay from Nome, and you'll see some more stuff in regards to COTS in a little bit, and then from there, small fixed wing aircraft up to where we're gonna go. Let's see, highlights to make, there were several. Brady took a drive in the rental car and he came back to the hotel. I don't remember why he was flying solo, but he's just Twitter. You guys got to come out of the hotel right now, get in the car, and we take a drive down the road. These two are walking down the side of the road in Anchorage, Alaska. And that's, you know, a mom and a cow. They're a cow, and I should say a calf. And the hotel was just around the corner, so very close to the truth. Nice restaurant downtown at the Glacier Brew House. Interestingly, it was clear that the locals don't eat there. It was all people like us that you know are traveling in this kind of thing, and it's okay. We may see some locals at a later date. So get up in the morning, and now it's going to airport time. And you can't see all of it, but there's a gun case. Everybody was sporting a backpack, and in addition, we had these NASA duffels and some other stuff to haul through the airport. Oh, you know what? I should back up. No, I mean, the gentleman that was just speaking remotely from Eugene, Oregon, that's Brady right there. So you can see this is going. It got worse. We guys probably walked past some of these artifacts that we got in the front. We brought some stuff back, right? So it got worse coming back. That gives you a sense. I think Briar already mentioned in-event stuff, took our own 2 carry-ons each, 5 check bags, and it was a constant that we got all 7. There was a pack on him, a pack on me, 5 in the cart. I think yes, we're good to go. This is the one of the gun cases. So I made an executive decision. That's my dad's rifle. That's probably a vintage late 1960s or 1970s. 7mm Remington Magnum, which is plenty. It's done all kinds of things. He's killed a moose with it, a mule deer. I've killed whitetail and elk with it. And now it's a caribou. There's lots of notches on the side of this. Briar also did research on what to carry for bear encounters. So those are 10mm Glocks with those. That is a hooker needle, which is something that I learned how to use the camp shoe and boot repair back in the day. It's for sewing, you name it, tents, boots. If your boots should come apart, I had the right thread for it, and so on. So you're gonna be doing a little bit of repair on scene. I was unaware, I decided not to take my best gear to Alaska because I thought, I don't know how's this gonna work, and is it all gonna get there in one piece and in good shape and the whole bit? And as it turned out, it did. I was unaware that you could carry it, you put ammo right in the box with the guns. Who knew, right? We didn't take a lot, but enough for each of these things. And that went through the airport. With varying levels of ease, depending on the airport, depending on the person standing behind the counter who's checking the stuff. It went from a lady interviewing me saying, did you comply with all the rules? I said, yeah. She said, and she listed a few of them. I said, well, I'll wait. She says, you certain? I said, I'm for imprint certain. She says, you're good. That much interview. As opposed to throw the case open in front of you and touch everything and then feel the foam in the case and make a big production of, are you taking any contraband up there north of the Arctic Circle? In various MOs. So get on a plane in Anchorage, carry-ons with the crew. This is the destination. This is our first view of Caribou, Alaska. Flying in over the ocean, that bay that's between that peninsula that Nome is on in this spot, that's already north of the Arctic Circle, by not very much. I fear with climate change and sea level rise, they're going to have issues. I mean, what do you suppose the high spot on that little spit of land is? Where is it?
6 feet.
6 feet above sea level on its best day. What's in COTS? Big long airstrips, which will handle surprisingly large cargo planes flying out from Anchorage, because this is the distribution center for all that Western Arctic and the peoples that live up there, in the shipping industry and the fishing and so forth that happens out of COTS. So it's an airport. It's some of the smaller airlines that fly out of COTS. Restaurant or two, couple of hotels, places to live for the people that are supporting that infrastructure, an indigenous people fishing village on the one coastline, and not much else. So you land, this is Ram Aviation right there. And that would be the interior of Ram Aviation. And it's quite a production. And they do this stuff from like July through September. And they handle people such as ourselves coming in to do these drop-in, fly-in hunts. And they got their artifacts in there, and we went through quite an orientation. That's us with our pile of stuff. Getting ready to go on. So flew out of Anchorage somewhat early in the morning. I don't know, is this midday?
Yeah, mid-flight, I think leaves at 9:30 from Anchorage.
And you fly quite a ways to get there, and then you go through an orientation. The guy sits down and says, here's all the rules and regulations and hunting, and it's a couple of heads up on current conditions, etc., etc. And I will try to remember to tell you some more about what came with that orientation as we go through. And
Sean,
then you
Question,
yes, sir.
so what month is this?
September.
Early or late?
And what was
Middle,
16th of September, Bill?
Yeah.
Mosquitoes were gone. And this is kind of the tail end of the hunting, this kind of style before the weather takes consistent and turns to the woods.
Based on how you're dressed, it looks like it wasn't exactly a warm day when you arrived.
Oh, no, you know, the carry-on, I had the environmental layer there, and I had top and bottom base layers in there, a down jacket, big boots, and all the rest of it, thinking if we're gonna step out someplace, it's gonna be raining and catching dogs. That didn't happen. But it was pretty chilly. Let's see. So, back to the drop-in camp.
Yes.
What, pay attention these next few seconds.
Oh, it's the helicopter.
That's the Caribou River. 150 miles north of the Arctic Circle. And what you see is what you get. To be continued. So if that's, Brian and I were already on the ground, our planes are already on the ground, that was Brady flying. If you were in the second plane. Look, you look more like that. And you know what? Those pilots have to get all the gear offloaded to get back in those planes and take off. So here you are, 150 miles north of the Arctic Circle with the pile of stuff that you brought that you hope is up to the task. And in what was for me, terra incognita. And it's, okay, what are we gonna do? So. If you, that's COTS. So we would have flown out here to the Caribou River. And there's our coordinates. I'm a little bit of a navigation nerd because I do that for search and rescue. I teach it. So it's 68 degrees north, 163 degrees west. The Arctic Circle is at 66.5 degrees. So did you see all the trees?
Yeah.
There weren't any.
For those who don't know, the Arctic Circle references line above which trees don't grow.
It also has something to do with the way the sun behaves in the sky, which we learned something about that too. Did you want to jump in and do some talking?
This is your book.
This my stuff? So, as part of the orientation, when you sit there in RAM Aviation, one of the things that they tell you in advance is this is how we do business these days. Back in the day, you would have taken a satellite phone and they would have had satellite phones, and that's how you would have done comms while you were out there isolated in the Caribou River. So this is an image device. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. Garmin product takes place in the stat phone, and these guys, small screen on there, but it does work as a GPS. You give you your current location. You can also send and receive text messages, two-way communication. And in addition, it's got a button that they protect with the cover. It says SOS on the side. And if everything goes south, you can pop that open and you press it, and it goes to an international center for Garmin. And then they will say, oh, that is Sean triggering an SOS from this location north of the Arctic Circle. They will then, it also goes to whoever you identified as your personal contacts. So your emergency contacts get this information in a jam. And then Garmin reaches out to whoever the local people that handle search and rescue operations are, and then they commence to trying to work on this. We were told, I think in no uncertain terms, that if you trigger this, when the Coast Guard comes and lands there at your isolated camp, and it turns out it was not life or limb threatening emergency, you better be prepared to pay a $21,000 fine. Keep the lid on your SOS rescue unless you need it.
Sean, how fast was the messaging up there?
Pretty
Surprisingly.
surprisingly fast.
Yeah.
very clear skies for us. I don't know how it would have gone with the weather being different. The, what this inReach does is you've got iridium satellites in north-south, they're polar orbits. And you should have one overhead every 15 minutes. And you say, I want to send a message, and you can pair this device with your phone. And there's an app on here so that you don't have to mess with the little bitty screen. You got a bigger screen version of the map where you are, you texting, you take care of that. And so part of our orientation was Ram Aviation said, every morning at 9 o'clock, we want from your camp, we want a weather report. And they specified we want wind speed and direction. We want to know visibility. Are there clouds on the mountaintops? Are there not? Etc. Has the river level changed? Because you saw that our landing strip is a beach, right? And I don't know if you also saw that our landing strip and our campsite was in the floodplain. And we're looking at that and going, I have a personal rule. You don't camp where you can see flood debris. And it's like, what kind of event would it have taken to get the water to come up that high? I think that's more of a spring runoff type of thing, melt off. I think we were out of danger, but it was one of those, something to think about, certainly. So we would send this in the morning at 9 o'clock, and we'd go out to Ram Aviation, and they would say, got it, and we would proceed. They also wanted to know whether we were still seeing caribou, because that's how they're making their living. In part, check it in with camps to say, hey, we know where we put you. And we know there were probably caribou there when we get put down. Are you still seeing it? Whoops, I went right past this one. To my delight, NOAA issued a G3 magnetic storm alert.
Oh,
right? And you can see, you can see by their map, this is where it was going to be the highest intensity, but it was going to reach out. You see where we were when they got in there somewhere. And it was like, holy cow, man, are we going to have an interference with our communications? Are we going to get to see the northern lights? All the things, right? And I was excited to see the impact on my universal compass that works anywhere in the world because it's got the red kind of needle, and see how that compared to what was happening with GPS, and then see if we're going to get northern lights. True confession. That's not what we saw. That's not, I pulled that off the web somewhere because I woke up the first night and this guy's out, he's taking a leak outside the tent, and he says, man, and it's like I wake up in the tent and it's just totally light. What's going on? He says, you should see the northern lights. Step outside. There was more to them than that. And some of it turned into soft serve. It wasn't all green. Spectacular. Wow. And shimmer.
None of us took a picture.
None of us took a picture. In addition to seeing me, I told you navigational nerd stuff. We're at 35 degrees north on the planet. And if you look north and you find the North Star, it's about 35 degrees above the horizon. Where were we? 68 degrees above the horizon. Holy cow, the big difference on all the Alaskan flag and all the sweatshirts that you buy, is up there in amongst these northern lights. And it's like, I can't believe I got to look that high to see that. I wish we'd taken pictures, but we didn't. So drop-in camp, that's what we took. That's what we set up. Point out a couple of highlights. Let's see, Brady is our firemeister. He quickly knocked out a fire ring. And then you have this, what passes for the riparian gallery forest. And it's alder and some other scrubby looking stuff, mostly about this high. Sometimes it's this high. And the wood might be that big around. Weather conditions were 90% humidity. Everything there is just saturated. Burning was going to be a challenge if we were going to have to do very much of that. We were able to get fires going, but didn't have to rely on them. So, Briar, what is it that you're doing here?
stringing up a bear fence, so. This is a backpack friendly version, weighs just a couple of pounds, it's powered by a couple of D-cell batteries. That's something that I chose to invest in because of who we had on the trip, and so there goes all the Nipman men, right? In one bear attack, but it was one of those. It's like, man, we're gonna be on the ground for a long time, long way from help. The last thing I want to think about while I'm sleeping is camp intrusion by a bear. So ended up investing in one of those. That 3 strands of wire, we just encompassed basically our entire sleeping quarters. Everything else was outside the fence, but also our food cache and some. Yeah, it's a pretty slick deal. I haven't tested it yet, but maybe one of these things. Yeah, it's very lightweight and it held up to the whole trip.
I personally felt reassured by the fact that we had an electric fence around our camp. And you'll see more about why that was here shortly. Anything else? A separate tent for our gear. There's living quarters, and we were prepared for lots of rain, which never materialized. I mean, I don't know what we did right, but we didn't get that. Another shot of camp.
Dad, one thing I'd add in that regard.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I'd add, going back to the communication with the Garmins and Ram Aviation, one thing that they asked us every time we checked in was not only did you see Caribou, but what is the weather doing? Every morning. They wanted us to report what we could see. So actually, interestingly enough, this photo that's up, that mountain that's snow-topped in the right corner, they wanted to know if we could see that clearly from camp, because the weather gauge that they have in COTS doesn't do any justice for what might be happening out there on the ground where we were. So there was a concern of if that weather really changed, whether or not they would be able to come get us. So it was a level of accessibility thing, and I'll never forget the quote one of our pilots gave us is that, you know what, just because it's bad weather, hunker down. We'll wait for it to clear up before we come get you, because you would much rather be on the ground wishing you were in the air than in the air wishing you were on the ground.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the time and I think I got to make some more progress here, so we'll get rolling. You're not allowed to hunt the first day. So fly from Anchorage to COTS to the Cutpower River, set up camp, no hunting. There probably is a rationale for that. So all we did was this part, looking, and flabbergasted. Caribou everywhere. It's like, holy cow. I mean, you elk hunt in northern Arizona, sometimes you go a week and you don't see an animal.
Yeah, we would go a minute maybe. No, it was insane. Flying in, you can see the little asterisk down at the bottom. Flying in, we flew over hundreds, and from camp we could see about that many. They were out their ways, but man, it was that first afternoon was like, okay, I guess it's the real deal.
We're here.
Yeah, we're here.
Maybe this is gonna happen. Yeah, so not exactly like down there at the 5-star hotel. And cold enough in the tent to dress accordingly. You know, we had good sleeping gear and a whole bit. The little tent does come with this breakdown titanium stove, it's very light. And push come to shove, we would have been harvesting that wood out there, and you can see you got a little cash. And yeah, you did get a burn in there, like the one you or whatever.
I think it's 2, but yeah, we the whole reason behind bringing the stove was so that we could dry gear. So I was fully anticipating us getting wet there and probably consistently. So if you're gonna get wet, you either gotta keep moving, you gotta be able to dry gear, and just for comfort's sake, because we didn't want to keep having cycle stuff. It was important to me to have a heat source in the thing.
Right, we're a little longer. Yeah, we did have to go back and forth across the river. We had little portable, very lightweight waders for that. You can see near the river, the vegetation was denser than it was out further from.
Far out would you say that was from where you were?
Not far at all. She got a lot closer too. So what I've read, what I've heard, caribou don't see great. And they wander so much during their lifetime that they see objects on the tundra and they just assume you're another caribou. And they'll come check you out. And that can actually be used as a hunting tactic. You can what's called wave them in, almost like you wave in geese, but
Nice.
yeah. So we were just walking across the tundra and she came. She was probably at 100-yard mark where she decided we weren't another caribou. Yeah, she came right up to us basically.
Bulls,
100 yards close enough.
bulls were what we had tags for. There was much discussion on, is that a bull?
Yeah.
Turns out it wasn't. Good girl. There we are. This tundra stuff, I got back up there. You can see why no indigenous people are hunting up there this time of year doing it the way we were doing it, because the tundra is extremely, it's the roughest walking I've ever done in my life. You get tussocks of grass the size of a bowling ball that you step on and they pivot one way or the other, and you step, and when you slide off, it's not a question of whether it's going to be water there. It's going to be, is it going to be this deep, or maybe this deep? You cross stuff it's genuine marsh after you get out of the tundra stuff, and then you get on the spongy land where it's beds of moss, and it's ridiculously hard walking, so the feet fit when you go. Yeah, it was cold at moments up there. This was kind of the standard for the time we were there. Maybe only 10, 12 degrees difference between night and day. And wind was always blowing more or less. And then, like I said, consistent 90% humidity. So practicing, survival, get out of the wind here, I'm on an insulated pad inside a reflective space pump, put back was pretty good. These guys were out there doing hard work like this. So the cut power river was out here. And there was a lot of this glassing and trying to calculate what's going on. Brard, after much looking at the terrain, decided this would be easier. We got off the tundra and onto these rocky ridges, which is more like home, easier. Much easier. So then something fun happened there. The third day out, weather's still cooperating, and so we put one down, and then we got to take this thing apart. We're 1.2 from camp, and then we got to carry all the gear back to camp as well as. And in part of our orientation, guy says, the rules say in Alaska, you put an animal down, thou shalt pack meat first. Horns and hide later. I was fortunate that I was not out there with lesser men, Brian Brady, load them up, and walk across that unforgiving tundra and get stuff back to Dodge. We saw wolves and grizzlies every day.
Wow, they're coming up to us, aren't they?
Got it. Yeah, there's some tundra speak.
Yeah, that's just
So for context, we've got a caribou on the ground that we were butchered.
well, their eyesight.
These guys emerged from that riparian gallery forest down by the creek. And it's like,
I'm tempted to just get a little
and they hung out around, well, I guess you saw your qualification, hung out of rifle range. Well, at least the rifle that we were carrying, we had a wolf bag. Could have done it if that had happened, but they hung. I think they played this game before.
Oh yeah.
And I think my guess is they responded to shots. Said, oh, yeah, we knew what happened when we hear shots. We wait till these guys get done and carry off as much as they can carry off. At least, I don't know.
Yeah, watching them, they basically paralleled the river. They were about 800 yards.
I know, that's why, like, we just.
They just hung out there.
Sure, their eyesight is better than a caribou.
Just those two.
Just those two that day. We saw this same pair a second day, and then we saw another one. It was not one of these. It was kind of
This might actually happen, huh? Well, I guess let's just see. I'm not gonna get excited yet.
Yeah. Which yeah, that was so. I purchased a wolf tag up there, which is right, wrong, or indifferent. I was telling myself just one in my life would be cool. But absolute respect for those animals, and we were told. So they had seen about 70 clients this year. We were the last ones to fly in. Nobody had killed a wolf that year, and seeing these guys emerge the way they did, had we given it significant effort, brought the good rifles, that might have happened. But yeah, it's very cool to see them and watch them do wolf things.
So that's what we brought back. This is our outdoor meat locker, just real quickly. So we piled up a bunch of this alder and set these bags of meat up on top of the antlers that I'd stand there too. And an orientation, they said, do that 50 or 60 yards from your camp and be prepared for hearing bears come in, and then you get up. You got a little bit of cushion, and so then you can take care of business, try to scare them off, and so on. We did see grizzlies every day. None of them came in. So I felt good about that.
Did they give you an estimate for for a bull caribou? I'm assuming like off the bone, how much meat you guys were getting?
Not off the bone. So a mature bear and ground caribou, 400 to 600 pounds.
Off the bone.
No, that's
the
entire animal.
Oh, I see.
I can tell you, for an animal that isn't quite as big as a bull elk, awfully heavy. Especially walking across the tundra.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not small.
I wish we had a bigger image of them. This is all cell phone stuff, so I apologize.
That's
What we learned is that you didn't have to go a mile and change away from camp. We learned that too late. They crossed that damn, or my French, river every day within a few hundred yards of camp. All we would have had to do is sit there on the ridge and plug one on the beach. Would have been way easier production. So for those of you thinking about going, learn your situation. You guys know Flipper the dolphin? Can you picture how Flipper sounds? We woke up to that kind of noise in camp. Every day. It's like, what is that? It was these. So that's Caribou, and it's like a tundra quail, and they change color with the seasons. They got their sun. That's disappearing summer plumage and gaining their winter plumage. Man, I tell you, it's like a big white flag taking off away from you. Pretty easy to track them.
We ate some in camp and they were fantastic.
We're told that that's the choice bite in Alaska.
Ribeye in the sky.
Ribeye in the sky.
You guys can see the difference between the bulls and the cows. Those bulls get those really big, at least this time of year, they do color change. Really big, white frontal portion.
Cows have horns too. Takes a little bit of looking to distinguish who's who.
Guy killed his bull on the backside of this ridge, and it's popping up right now. And this was just post. He got himself out of that little pink angle rapid. You guys saw a picture of him. My brother went to go look around the edge. While we're sitting there, skinny butcher doing all the things. He taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey man, oh, you're after a big one. There's a few good ones in this herd." And it didn't take me very long to go look at it. So yeah, there's one. Shoot. lesson learned on this experience here. So this is a 470-ish yard shot. I hadn't shot that rifle more than 3. You guys can obviously hear the wind. I missed him clean. Missed him clean. I don't remember what it was, 2 or 3 shots in a row, and then that was that. And that bull. Big. That's my only regret of the trip right there. was not practicing more with that gun. That bridge, the rifle I'm truly familiar with. He could have made that shot. I also think, looking back at it and how those animals behave outside of what I consider kind of their personal space, I think I could have cut that in half maybe without them really making a move to get out of there. So yeah, hard lesson learned on that. This particular group also gave us the slip too. Had they stayed where they were going to, or where we thought they were going to stay, it would have been like a 250-yard shot, and it would have lined up really well. These particular animals made it almost a half mile in the few minutes that it took me to hustle back and grab the rifle and get back up the ridge. I'm thinking 5 minutes. They went from grazing half the herd bedded to now they're half a mile further up this big valley and out of sight. My brother and I were literally asking each other, those caribou were real, right? Because we could see the whole basin and they completely disappeared.
I'm going to interrupt. I'm told they graze at 7 miles an hour, and they are perpetual motion machines. It's like almost never stop. I mean, they did embed briefly.
Well,
but
they don't all bed as a group. They individuals bed while the rest of the herd is feeding.
Yeah,
and then they get up, so they just rest in increments like that.
just in motion. We got to keep going here, bud.
Okay.
Yeah, with some effort.
Yeah.
And yeah, loaded to walk out. So that's Brady. And as you can tell, I don't know, he's got at least 1 quarter there, behind quarter, horns, it's geared back.
That was definitely 2 quarters.
Was it 2 quarters? It,
Well, I mean, if I recall, I mean, I always carried 2 quarters just for everyone else in the room, just to be really clear about that.
we were glad you were along, man, to just load this guy up and watch him go across this unforgiving terrain. It was pretty impressive. Sun was up, what do you guess, 14, 15 hours a day?
That beats.
Yeah, and it's low in the horizon. And so it comes up over there and it's like doing this arc instead of up in here, opposite of the northern star, which was higher. And it's low. And it's almost like it wraps clear around you. It's a kind of a disoriented. Oh, okay, so we're getting real close to the end. So Brady, anything more to say about Powerick River experience there before we jump to digress to Juneau?
You know, the only other thing I'll offer about Alaska is the thing that makes it intimidating is what makes it so cool is we were completely isolated out there, and talk about feeling like you're really in the wilderness when you're in these parts of Alaska. And these photos don't really do it justice, the scale and the size and the distance in between things, but would really highly encourage anyone who's interested in doing it, do it. Brian and I are already at the point where we're trying to plan our next trip. That's how well this all went. But no, I think I'll end it on that.
Hey, are you guys including me in that planning?
I don't think he was supposed to let that.
I think, yeah. It's, anyway, we'll talk offline. So Brady had to go back to Eugene early, and so in discussion with Ram Aviation, they were wanting to. We didn't know we were the last camp out there, and they were wanting to go home into the long hard season, lots of trips. And so we're in discussion, and the guys, I said, hey, reminder, Brady needs to come out on Friday. They would come get Brady, take it back. And the guy says, I highly recommend everybody come out. Well, he didn't have his second bull. He didn't have the second bull yet. Okay, well, he says, yeah, it's going to be instrument only flying the next 3-4 days according to the forecast. Which with that little inReach device, you can request a local forecast and get that daily. Okay, well, he shoots a bull. I said, hey, by the way, not one coming out on Friday, 3, load and go. Brady had to do his separate thing, get on the plane, the cons, go back to Anchorage, go back to Oregon. He Brian arranged a trip to country that where he said he lived up there in Alaska on a river outside of Juneau, so he's got contacts.
Yeah, well, so the missing part of the Trinity there. So we did the ptarmigan and the caribou thing, and next up it's the salmon. And I got to do salmon fishing about as good as you can do, in my opinion. I lived on the Taku River, working at a caribou lodge, a tourist lodge up that river for I guess a better part of a year. I had 2 separate occasions I went back. And there are feeder creeks that go into the Taku. The Taku's all glacial fed. It looks like a big milkshake. But all those feeder creeks, the salmon come up. It runs all 5 species of salmon at different points of the year, and they get into those creeks to spawn. I got to fish all 5 species for months at a time, and that was the experience I wanted to take him back and do. Way it turned out, end of the season, so they closed down their tourist season in September. We were aligning right with their last tours and everybody coming back from the lodge. My contacts up there were super busy getting everything shut down. The weather was terrible. High winds, pouring rain, very poor conditions for either being out on a boat or on a float plane. So we ended up fishing in Juneau, and it ended up working out. It wasn't quite the experience I had in mind, but it worked out just fine. We got to do a whole bunch of coho fishing, had a couple different inlets, and kind of put a stamp on the trip.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Spectacular! All the rain that we anticipated out there in the tundra happened while we were every day, and so the coho we're running. This is the Gastineau Channel, an arm of the Pacific that runs up in right next to Juneau. What we learned the hard way is that there's 16 feet of tidal change. It's not quite a 24 hours, it's less than that. There's a whole story there, but I look at the watch and we're getting close to having a due time. And then, like I said, thing of beauty that the timing worked out that these guys, the so-called coho, or also known as silver salmon, were running. He had a lot of expertise in the salmon stuff. So we were there. We had access to a walk-in freezer at his buddy's place at the airport. So all our caribou and the horns and all that stuff was there in boxes. And then we're out there by Ben, plane hanger light.
It's very DIY.
Yeah, DIY.
Yeah,
You think about these guided hunts where you sit back and watch and take pictures, and the guy takes care of all the business. Now we're up there, we're gonna fillet the salmon, get them on ice in the boxes so we can bring them home. So it's pretty part of the adventure. I think that's the last slide.
Lessons learned, I think.
Oh yeah. You wanna? Okay, one more. With a fish. And then there you go. You're up.
Okay, so takeaways, we've touched on the gear. You can't do a trip like this without the right gear. You can, if you want to be comfortable, enjoy the trip, invest in the best stuff you can do. Do your research on the front end. You got to take, borrow, steal, do that. But yeah, it's boots were the big one. That's why it's all capitalized. Especially for walking around on the tent. It became very apparent. 30-degree days, everything's always frosted, and you are always going to be in 3 to 6 inches of water when you're walking across that stuff. You cannot do it without the right equipment. Yeah, and then this was just the essentials. Like for any extended backcountry stay, you need to have good sleep. You need to be able to stay warm. Communication with each other, but also to some sort of safety net back home. All of that stuff. We were talking about it, so with Dad being a survival nerd, if you will, and very highly involved in search and rescue. We were talking about survival out there in the tundra. How would a gentleman stay warm if you got banged up and couldn't make it back to camp? And a lot of people carry fire starter and things like that. You cannot build a meaningful fire and maintain it out there in some of that country. So your safety system kind of has to be tailored to that. That big space blanket. Highly recommend a down would be ideal, but synthetic if it's going to get wet. A big puffy suit, at least pants and top. And that's gonna be your safety net. You end up having to spend the night out somewhere. So yeah, thinking about some of those things a little bit differently, than you would here in the
What
area.
about wool?
Southwest wool, I think would be great. Only problem with wool is it gets really hit. And warmth for weight.
Yeah.
If you're gonna pack stuff out across the tundra and be coming back with animals and stuff,
Yeah,
I would try to go with something like maybe a synthetic puffy or, cause wool is great, retains its heat, or its insulating properties even when it's wet, it's just really heavy. Let's see, rifle for every tag holder, that bit us more than once. So that would be something that if you're gonna go do, yeah, rifle for every tag holder, and then practice out to, reasonable ranges. Know the weapon really well, because when it comes crunch time, I still hold that regret. But yeah, when it comes down to crunch time, you never know when you're gonna have to make something that's maybe a little bit longer of a shot. Physically, mentally prepared. So that goes without saying. As much research as I did leading up to this, everybody says the tundra is like nothing else. It will kick your butt. And it absolutely did. 12 years of hot shotting, and that's the toughest terrain I've ever been on. If I had to do it over again, I would definitely focus on stabilizing muscles, core muscles, and then cardio. The mental game you bring up there. You're gonna have setbacks. It's probably gonna be cold. You're gonna be tired. You might get wet. Don't throw in the towel. And it's one of those that positive mental attitude goes so far in the experience that you're gonna have, because it's gonna be tough any way you slice it. At least more than likely. And yeah, it's bring the good mental attitude. Expect the difficulties, expect the setbacks, and you're gonna have to roll with the punches. But that was one of those just kind of, if you're gonna go up there, the mental preparation is gonna be as important as the physical preparation. Let's see, the 2 to 3 years out, that was a hard lesson learned. Like I said, 90% of the folks that I called, and this was a year and a half out, were already booked out for the season. And some of them were booked 2 to 3 years out. So if you're interested in doing something like this, that planning cycle needs to start. If you want to get on somebody's books and you have a specific hunt in mind, start it at least 2 years out. 3 years probably preferable, but those things, they fill up really fast. So yeah, if you have something in mind, that you need to stay on that planning cycle. This was an unexpected. So the way airlines work up there, commercial, not a big deal going from Phoenix to Seattle to Anchorage. Once you get in state, it depended on the flight, but most of them would only guarantee one carry-on, two, or not carry-on, check bag, only two.
I do not remember that detail, but it wasn't as many as we had.
Yeah, so you're only guaranteed like one check bag per passenger, because they're smaller planes. They're still commercial flight, but smaller planes. Everything else is put on standby, until they know that they're going to have room. What does that mean? So if you catch a early flight out of Anchorage to Kotzebue, and your important gear gets put on standby until the next flight, which is many hours later in the afternoon, you might be SOL. A day that you had planned to hunt or to fly into the field, you might have to eat. So something to think about. That's again where this, go with the outfitter's gear kind of comes into play too. Not just how much stuff you're going to bring back, but with all of the considerations of how they sort your checked baggage and what they prioritize when you get up there. We got extremely lucky that everything made it on every flight. Nothing got put on standby. We weren't held up that way. I could see that being a huge problem in the future. If you do fly with a lot of baggage, I would say make sure all the essentials, so everything you need to hunt, to stay warm, set up camp, is within that like one check bag or one or two check bags in your carry-on, because the rest of it's not guaranteed.
So prior, did they let you choose which bag got on?
Well, we got to pick, but it was, so we decided all the hunt gear goes, the food stays. If food and camp basically stay, because they had that stuff with Graham. But it was like, what can we not do this without the first day or two? And so yeah, we got to pick which bags stay go or which put on standby. Because when you're checking that stuff in, they let that be known, like, hey, we're gonna put some of these on standby, which one you want to be, when you put a separate tag on. Mm-hmm. And then this was the other big one. So yeah, again, for those interested, I wish I had somebody hold my hand through this whole process. And what I'll say is if you are really interested to know someone who is, you're more than welcome to have them reach out to me and I can. Point to, there's a whole lot of do's and don'ts that didn't make it on just for time's sake and didn't want to bore you guys to death with just gear, little tidbits about travel, some other things about just Caribou in general, but yeah, I wish I'd had someone coach me through all of it. I was very fortunate that I had a lot of acquaintances, friends that had experience, and I had some doing some other things, but yeah, there's some hard knocks, and it was so much time spent on the planning stuff that doing it again, it would go a lot easier. And then if I had someone to walk me through it, it would have been, I think, a much smoother process, a much less draining my time. It's not out of reach if you guys want to do that.
Yeah. When you go pick a week that you know it's gonna be clear and sunny every day. And you work with the airline so that they guarantee you make all your connections. I don't know what we did right. All our bags made it every time, every stop, no fuss, no fuss, clear and sunny the entire week. There was no stay 3 extra days in tots waiting for to be able to fly out. And then take a couple of strapping bearded young men with high outdoor IQs with you. It makes it go all kinds of ways better. That's my party shot. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, questions, comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was curious about when you had the geomagnetic storm, even though you're kind of on the edge of it, did you notice any issues or any differences on your GPS navigation solutions?
Absolutely.
How was it, were they different, were they off, or what was the quality of it?
Eyeball in camp shooting a field bearing. GPS where I had dropped a waypoint at camp and said, what is it to camp? 15 or 20 degrees different. And then trying to figure out the declination up there. It was, whichever it was, the declination is actually west. It was showing that it was east. And yeah, so I wanted to goof with that some more, try to get that straightened out. And it also probably would not have been a problem several more days into the hunt. That was the first day when I was looking at some of that monkey business. But yeah, it messed those things up. Fortunately, it didn't interfere with the satellite communication with the inReach. That all went according to plan. And it was line of sight, all of our navigation as it turned out, so we didn't have an issue with that. Had it gotten dark, yeah, if the stars had come up, we'd still been okay because it was clear.
Great, well, thanks.
Yeah. If you didn't get to, and you guys gotta go, I realize we went over time somewhat there. That's the horns off my dink bull. I was gonna shoot the first legal one that presented itself and I did. That's the hide that came off of that one. The inReach is over there. If you wanna look at any of that on the way out or see what that, touch that hide, say, oh, you know what? I can see why indigenous people made clothing out of that.
I recommend touching
This
this.
right after the touch.
Yeah, it's not just dense.
The hairs are hollow and buoyant when they swim and extra insulative. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you.